welcome to today's episode of Empower Together. I'm your host, Desirie Parker, and today I'm super excited about my guest. It is Armand King. He is a humanity advocate, basically. Armand has been, he's got years and years and years of experience advocating for youth, advocating for victims of trafficking, victims of gangs. He's written books, he consults, he advises. Armand is just out there, like, doing amazing work, and I'm so excited to have him on the show today. So, welcome, Armand. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fantastic, and just hearing you, saying humanity advocate. Sometimes people, we put labels on things, and I understand why. It's for us to be able to classify, point to, describe. I get in, like, I don't know what. Sometimes they ask me, "What is your title?" I'm like, I don't. I just do, and there's no real
Mm-hmm.
title. Like, I do design programs. Sometimes I say program design specialist, which I am,
Mm-hmm.
advocate, which I am, women advocate, men advocate, community leader, all these different labels. I strive to be a good person and a better person than I was the previous day. So, and I'm doing
And that's
great.
always, yeah, I would say that's all we can do is try to be better than who we were.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's the only person we're competing with. So, yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad you're here. Um, I met Armand several years back, working in anti-trafficking. Armand wrote an amazing, really, I think, like, paradigm shifting book, as far as I'm concerned, called Raised in Pimp City. This is also the name of your podcast, correct?
Yes. So previously, for maybe 3 years, I ran a podcast called Raised in Pimp
Okay.
City. And as we were kind of talking before, we started this podcast, there is this thing called growth, and
Yes.
and where I wrote that book, and through the years, there's been a lot of growth. The content of the book is still very much so factual, but I can't wait to put out the next addition to that, kind of following up on the thoughts, things that have changed, trends that have grown, or are different than they were at that moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
plan on calling that book Raised, just Raised, not Raised in Pimp City, but Raised, as well as the podcast. I've already changed the name to just Raised. Documentary coming
I love
soon.
that.
The documentary was Raised in Pimp City, and now it's also just Raised. And a lot of the work I do, including you'll see in that book, a lot of it's based off the loss of life of my friends. And
Mm-hmm.
over the more recent years, I would say 2021, the amount why I'm impacted by the loss of life of friends, I don't know why God has given me that deep connection, but I've lost so many more in the past couple of years that
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just to Pimp City, which I call, it was drugs, it was murder, it was gangs, it was all of the things that horrible lifestyle of pimping came from. But the youth, the people that come from that same situation, either they went that route, or they went gang route, or they went just drugs, and it's just so much being raised in
Mm-hmm.
the communities in which I come from. So I'm broadening it up more than just focusing only on the trafficking, because yes, that is an issue, but there's underlining issues that lead people into those lifestyles, lead them to make those choices, led me to make those horrible choices, my friends. So I deeply understand. It's a long way of answering. Yes, it was Raised in Pimp City. Now it's just called Raised.
Okay, that's awesome. And I completely understand what you're saying. I watched a documentary, and I don't remember which one. But there's been so many about trafficking, obviously. And there was a sociologist or somebody that explained and it's stuck with me ever since, that, trafficking is the explosion at the top
Mm.
of just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of societal ills. I mean, it's just what, bubbles to the top of poverty and socioeconomic issues and racial prejudice and drugs and mental illness and just all
Right.
of these things just build into that explosion of something horrific.
Correct.
Um,
Great.
all these, other horrors combine into something else. Um, and I've kept up, of course, with all the work you're doing. You're doing work now to bring systems and organizations together to collaborate better,
Yeah.
so that systems can be more informed. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so me and a friend of mine, Amanda Brown, she was actually in a human trafficking class that I hosted at USD. Me and my friend Ebony Robinson and Jamie Johnson, we collaborated with Free to Thrive, the a legal group that
Mm-hmm.
helps victims of trafficking, and we hosted this series of trainings for USD grad students. And Amanda Brown was in there. When she finally got out of school, she hit the ground running. She's really been an activist working with community-based organizations and systems. And together right before we started this conversation series, we did a training for this group in New York based on community-based organizations and systems working together, which we know, and many people have these conversations, so we didn't create it, but it's like, let's bring this to the forefront, because us not being connected, we're not servicing the people as well as we could if we were operating and working together. It doesn't mean we need to be best friends, but collaboration is needed. Trust is needed. Working with each other is needed for the people we aim to serve. So this conversation series we've been hosting monthly. We missed
Mm-hmm.
last month. There was some issues that arise, so we had to push it back. But July, don't know the date off the top of my head. I will post it. But every month we're bringing in different people. Like I said, we're not just the experts. There's many experts out here who know these and have dealt in systems and community-based organizations. So we bring them on and
Mm-hmm.
we dialogue, and hopefully the conversation sparks somebody's thoughts and makes them, either people. There's some people who are like, I'll never work with the system. That could, and system is wide. That could be district attorney's office, probation, health and human services. It could be all these different
Mm-hmm.
things people have, and vice versa. There's systems that say, I'll never work with this lived experience expert group, and we hopefully can spark their interest and open their mind to do this work. And the ultimate goal is to benefit the people.
Absolutely. And then acknowledge the value
Yeah.
that working together has.
Right.
The systems have um, power to make certain changes that the community-based organizations don't, but they don't always have the knowledge. They don't have the experience. They don't have, and so it only makes sense to collaborate
Right. We have the
and share that.
right.
Yeah. So that's great. I participated in the one, I think, in April or May, and it was wonderful. So y'all are doing a great job.
Thank you. I'm glad you're
Um,
here to be a part of that. And
yeah.
please come back and add your insight too, because I know you have plenty of it.
Thank you. So, tell me a little more about your most recent book that you just released in March about the fentanyl crisis that we have here in the United States. I know we hear a lot about the opioid crisis, but fentanyl is something we're just not hearing enough about.
Absolutely. And that's where that book came from. I really, not to say that it was a rushed book, but as you see, it's really short, to the point, and it's a guide
Mm-hmm.
specifically to help parents and teachers and people who work with youth on how to
Mm-hmm.
communicate with them. I lost one of my best friends in 2017 to fentanyl, and I've never heard of it before that. And even when
Mm-hmm.
they told me what he died of, I didn't understand it. And it was the last time I heard of fentanyl until 2019, 2020. And since then, I've at least lost 24 associates, friends, people I was close
Wow.
to. And it's like a constant thing. And as you see in the media, it is blowing up across the nation, and people of all social economic statuses, racial background, everyone is susceptible to dying. I don't care how rich you are. You went through the
Absolutely.
list of entertainers that have passed away, including the great Prince and DMX.
Hmm.
Coolio just was discovered, died of fentanyl. You know, it's
Yeah.
you know it's tragic. So what I did was that ultimately I'm creating this curriculum called Walk With Me Impact that deals with issues of drug abuse, human trafficking, youth violence, gang violence, and a lot of the different ills that impact young men growing up in the inner cities. And this curriculum specifically for young men at this point. We're creating other versions for women, for different groups of people, very specific. Because
Hmm.
although we all need mentoring, we all need help, there's some very specific words and things that are needed for different groups. And we wanted to make sure we
Absolutely.
did those. So in there, the fentanyl is in there, and the curriculum was too many people were dying. And I'm like, let me get something
Yeah.
out there now that can be inexpensive, that parents
Hmm.
can buy, and they can literally read it to their kids. There's verbiage in there of how do you talk to a different elementary school kid, middle school kid, high school
Hmm.
kid,
Hmm.
college. What do you say to them? And sometimes we don't have, as parents, we don't have these conversations with our kids because we don't know how to, and or we come
Yes.
at it, and then there you have the other end where you may know how and you're saying it the right words to your kid, but the kid signs you off. Well, that's mom. They expect you to say that's dad, and they sign you off.
Hmm.
But in this case, I'm hoping you're like, wait, no, this isn't mom's word. Let me read you this, John. Sit down for a second. You know, or sit down for a second. Let me read. I didn't say this. This is other words.
Yeah.
And then we have different, we have some entertainers in there, some social media. One of the social media influencers who's serving 13 years right now for the loss of life of his friend. He accidentally gave a fentanyl pill to.
Wow.
So we have his
Oh.
words in there. So it's a pro skater. We have pro skater Brandon Turner. He's in there. It's just some words like listen. So yeah, we got that book out. We're waiting on right now, waiting on the digital version to finalize, and then
Hmm.
that'll
Hmm.
be free of charge. I just want when people buy a book from us now, what we do if when someone purchases a book, we go out and buy two or three more and give them to
That's
teachers.
great.
Give them to we just finished delivering 7 to the Girl Scouts here in San Diego recently, but we
That's
just
great.
goal is to get this out, get the word out as fast and efficient as possible.
Yeah. And that's great. I mean, being able to speak to it and speak to it, like you said, from perspectives of people who know what they're talking about.
Right.
It's not just me, it's just not just my mom, mom speaking to teenagers or, whatever it is. It's people who have experienced tragedy or have experienced, loss from this and
Right.
know what it means and know what it does from an intimate perspective. So, and being able to speak to that at all levels because it does need to start younger than a lot of people think.
Right.
Um, and I think that's part of the problem too. Is a lot of these conversations happen um, older than what a parent thinks they should.
Right. And don't get me
You
wrong.
know.
At this point, everybody needs to hear about it because I know of two 60-plus-year-olds that just passed away of fentanyl.
Oh my
When
gosh.
you're young, that's your experimental. You don't really understand life as much. Two 13-year-olds that I know recently have passed away from fentanyl in my city, and you don't understand. And it's different from when we were growing up and someone could be addicted to a hard drug for years, be
Yeah.
strung out on meth,
Yes.
strung out on heroin, strung out on crack cocaine, and
Yeah.
live and just be whatever,
Yes.
from functional to homeless and not
Yes.
functional, but you
Yeah.
can live.
Yes.
And if you OD'd
Yes.
some tragic thing, but now it's not, I don't even call it OD, overdosing, you're like poison. You could be
Yeah.
someone clean as a whistle, never use drugs, walk into that party, have a drink, or even just get offered this pill from your friend and you're dead.
Yeah.
then so it's that serious, that, and it's happening like that. So we do need to warn everybody, even the people who say, "Oh, my daughter, my son, they're fine. They don't do
They
drugs."
don't do
But
that
that
off. Yeah.
one time, that one party, that
Yeah.
one peer pressure, peer pressure still
Yeah.
exists, very much so.
Oh, very much.
And
Yes.
you have a friend that says, "Here, it's okay. It's just one pill. That one pill, you're dead now." So it's
Yeah.
warn, warn, warn our people.
Yes. Yeah. My best friend, her next door neighbors, they just not just this week lost their 21-year-old son
Mm.
to an overdose.
Yeah,
And it's just tragic.
right.
It's just tragic.
Mhm.
Um, and like you said, it's all walks of life. It's not this is not just happening amongst homeless or people on the streets or already drug addicts, stuff
Right.
like that. I mean, this is kids in the suburbs
Yep,
or kids everywhere,
everywhere.
people everywhere.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. um so you also have paving great futures. How is that going?
So I'm forever connected. I know that, but I haven't worked for paving. I created it, launched out of my head.
Yes.
I founded it in 2010. But since then, I've moved on around 2021. They're still operating and doing their
Okay.
thing and serving people. I moved into this, kind of a space of taking the knowledge that I learned in the nonprofit sector into creating now education and curriculum on the for-profit side, and
That's
really just
same
take
journey I'm on.
nonprofit's cool.
It's
God's
wonderful.
journey. I learned it, but I have not. I've graduated into now taking the tried and true methods that I learned,
Hmm.
that I know help people, that I know we've serviced
Yeah.
thousands of individuals. But now, how do I take that and expand it and package it and be able to give those
Hmm.
tools to others everywhere outside of my
Yes.
region, outside of my little neck of the woods? So that's what
Yes.
the curriculum, the Walk With Me Impact education wing is doing, and I've packaged this
Hmm.
up to help mentors everywhere, give them the tools and things I wish I had coming up. So I didn't know. I just came straight from the streets
Oh,
pretty much and into servicing people. And
yes.
I didn't know there was no manual. How do you be a mentor?
Mm-mm.
How do you deal with
Mm-mm.
the loss of life of a mentee? What is
Yeah.
self care? You hear it, it sounds cool, but what is it? Why do you need it?
Yes.
How do you work
Hmm.
with systems? How do you understand the parents of the youth you're dealing with when the parents are traumatized themselves and you got a kid for 1 hour a week, maybe, and
Hmm.
they go back to these toxic households for their whole life? How do you
Yeah.
combat that? So
Yeah.
as far as I know, even to this day, there's no book, there's no guide I can go to that helps me that. So rather than
No.
wishing I created that from mentors and had different people chime in, and we have this outside of, say, you have the curriculum. It has two books that are for the youth.
Hmm.
But the facilitator's guide could also work as a standalone one-stop shop for a mentor that works with hard to reach populations. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And then I'm consulting. So I consult nonprofits and speaking
Hmm.
and training. But the day to day nonprofit work that I was doing, paving great futures, I have stopped that for.
Yeah.
I'm going on 2 years.
Okay. So founded it and have now let it grow, um,
Right.
and
And
both moved on.
sometimes you got to step out of the way because
Yeah.
you do so much. By me stepping out the way, it enabled other people, multiple people, to come in. If I was still doing what I was
Hmm.
doing, there wouldn't have been a spot for these new great mentors that are
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love what you said about creating guides for people. It's one thing to be mentoring and to be teaching and to be doing all those things, but after so many years, you want to be able to reach beyond your
Right.
your own sphere, and creating these materials and creating these curriculums and creating what you're doing, is enabling those things to move out, and take your experience to places that don't have it,
Correct.
and allowing them to be able to utilize what you have, um, outside of your immediate community into, to take that curriculum and use it in, you know, Florida or, you
And
know,
Canada,
Boston or,
right?
anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like
And
handing off a baton, because just
hmm
being in this for over a decade, it can be, it can cause heartache when you
yes.
don't really see, you're in this fight. If you're the person that's in it, passionate about it, there's a reason that, and a calling that you had, so you care, you really care.
Yes.
Most people, not that they don't care, but they don't get involved. Majority of the folks out there, they don't get involved to help people. So
hmm
there's a certain group of us that do get active, do join groups, whatever it is. It could be saving the seals. Something caused you to go fight for those seals. So whatever that
Yes.
passion is, but like when you're working with human beings, and you realize it, like it's almost like, dang, people keep dying, going to jail. It's only so much your heart can take, and I experienced that heartache, and it's like
Yeah.
it's painful. And then also
Yeah.
getting, when you put yourself out there as a person, you get attacked, you get lied
Yeah.
on, you get all these
Yep.
things happen, and it's not just woe is you. This happens to people, period, that do this work, and I've noticed.
Yes.
So
I have
uh,
experienced it
I,
100%.
you start doing this, go ahead, please start doing this work. You'll see, somebody ain't gonna like you. It ain't just
Yep.
community-based organizations and systems working together. Community-based organizations don't like community-based organizations because you smile too
Mhm.
bright, because
Ac-
you got the grant they wanted. You got
exactly.
you got the piece of paper certificate that they wanted. It is
Your
crazy.
fundraiser did better. You're at whatever,
Come on,
anything,
yeah, yeah.
anything and everything.
Yeah, your Zoom background looked a little too spiffy. It'll pick something.
Your newsletter's a little too put
Yeah,
together.
you just
It's
you
just,
just disagree about something rather than like, we're here to help. But anyway, that's a
yes,
whole nother show. But
it is. It really is.
yeah, but you got this.
But,
This is the work needs to be done still, and you can't think.
hmm
And I don't, honestly, I'm a visionary. The gang violence is not going to stop in my lifetime. I can
yeah.
help appease, but I'm like, how do you spread this, and then how do you help the
hmm
next? Like, even you take the military, you have people, you go, you do your years, you move up in rank, but they're constantly recruiting new soldiers to fight the war, because the wars
Yes.
continue. The protection is needed, the help is needed. But this
Yeah.
80-year-old general can't assume he's still going to be. No, he's calling shots though, with his experience or
Yeah.
her experience. They're helping the new
Yeah.
men and women to come in and do that. So it is the same thing. This is a fight for life. This is
Yeah.
a war that we are in against evil. And
Yeah.
you're not the one. You can't, oh, I got this, and you just hold on to this torch. And I remember coming into this community work, and we were one, like, we would go to elders, and like some were acceptable, but some were like, they were holding on to this torch. I'm like,
Yes.
your torch ain't even lit anymore, man. Pass that, pass it. Like,
Yes.
we're trying to pry out of
Yeah.
your 90-year-old hands. We're trying to pry this unlit torch.
Yes.
You should have
Yeah.
passed it 40 years ago,
Yeah.
or constantly help this next generation to fight the
Yes.
fight. So that this
That's,
curriculum is
yeah.
helping others to fight the fight, and realizing my position has shifted now, and I need to help
Yes.
build other mentors, other leaders, and more of them, and give them the tools that I didn't have, and
hmm
the ones that I did have, and give them to them to
hmm
really, you speed up the process. Right? I had to learn over a decade, but
Yes.
let me help you year one, so we can advance.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's the whole reason I started my business. I'm like, I want to, spending 15 years working with, survivors of trafficking, and then kids who've been trafficked, and then kids in foster care and things like that, um, people burn out so quick, because it is, like you said, it's a hard, and even being out now, I mean, I've seen two former clients show up on missing person reports in the
Mm,
last couple of weeks,
right.
because it's a hard business. I mean, it's a hard job. But what took me, 12, 15 years to learn and grow into and adapt, um, you know, it's time for me to step back from being one of the early people in this movement to
Right.
now being somebody who builds other people up into leadership
Right.
um, in this movement and helps them go from taking 10 years to taking 1 year,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
or 6 months to get to that point, you know, to stand on, you know, it's time to have people stand on the shoulders of the founders
Absolutely.
and the original, you know, and be able to create something better and new.
Absolutely.
So completely understand.
Yep. It is. It is. It is time.
So
You have
that's
to realize
awesome.
when that time has
Yeah,
come,
definitely.
and all of your knowledge is needed, all of your experience is needed. But there are other people now to build up, and hopefully, a good leader is building other leaders. So I've been striving to do
Yes.
that, and it's not, this work is not for everybody. It is hard. It is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. A good
Yeah,
leader is
sometimes
absolutely, yeah. They're not holding on to power.
I want to just go sell ice cream sometimes, like with no worries.
I'm
But
like, oh
I
man,
want
I'm
to run
like,
an ice cream parlor. That's it. Like,
I know, I'm like, you
God,
know,
am I done yet?
I could,
Like, nope.
I was on a mission trip in Costa Rica a few years ago, and I was working with an organization with trafficking victims. But there was a place that did monkey tours, and I was like, I could live
Hmm.
down here, and I could give monkey tours. I mean, you know, I could,
I, I could do that.
you know, it's a
No
nice
worries.
place. Like, you
Yep.
know,
Go
live
home,
on the
pay your
beach and give
bills,
monkey tours.
and lay up, chill. Yep. Life would be so much easier.
It would be so much easier.
Right.
But no, that's not, you know,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there yet. Not there yet. So
Right.
maybe
That's
one day.
one day.
But yeah. So if people want to learn more about what you're doing, if people want to buy your books, follow your podcast, all that kind of stuff, so where can people go and find out more about Armand King and about his books and all of that kind of stuff?
So for books, for sure, you go to Amazon. You can search me by author Armand King. Search Walk
Mm-hmm.
with Me Impact will be up in a few days. Myself and my survivor sister, Jamie Johnson, we have a book coming out real soon called From the Streets to the Suites, really helping
Perfect.
individuals formerly incarcerated or incarcerated, formerly in the game of some type, helping them to transfer stuff they were doing in the illegal side into positive, productive activities. So that'll be out soon. But other than that,
Love
look up
that.
Armand King on every social media platform. I'm there. Walkwithmeimpact.com. It's up. That's the website. And I am not hard to find.
You're not. That's true. We're connected everywhere.
Right.
Armand is out there, and he's posts great information. He, you know, has like you mentioned the events coming with talking about community-based organizations and systems coming together. Get his books; they're great. I can't recommend them
Thank you.
highly enough. Listen to the podcast. I need to catch up now that it has updated.
Right.
And it sounds like it's moving on to some really great content. And I will have your links in in the notes
Yeah,
for the
thank you.
podcast,
Thank
so
you
people
for
can
having me.
find you there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I'm so excited that you came on today. It's been really wonderful talking to you. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
Yes. Be a good person. And
Yeah,
if you don't like and love what you're doing, don't do it. Find something you like and love. I don't care what it is. There's a way to make money off of everything. If they pay your bills, find it. What do you like? I like drawing cartoons. Draw cartoons. You like collecting Smurf dolls? Collect Smurf dolls. Start a podcast about it. If
there you
life
go.
is short, you live one time. Be a good person and do what you like and like what you love. Okay, that's it.
I love it. That's great advice. That is perfect advice to end on. So thank you so much, Armand, for being here.
You're welcome.
I'm your host, Desirie Parker, and this is the Empower Together podcast, and we will see you later.
All right. Peace.